Hi YouTube. Today I'm going to be canning some cherries. I've decided I'm going to do something called spirited cherries. The recipe for this, let me move over here and get this book, is in the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. This is a good one to have, and one of these days I'm going to do a video on some of my canning books. So, as you can see, this is the one we're going to be doing. This is Spirited Cherries. So, I bought a couple of pounds of cherries while they were on sale at the grocery store this week. And as you can guess from the name, Spirited, it's going to have a little liquor in there. Now, it gives you, rum, brandy, or vodka, or Kirsch, cherry brandy, amaretto. Well, I have the amaretto. I have some triple sec. Some cream de cocoa, I'm not sure about that one. Some peach schnapps, I'm not sure about that one. And some Fireball cinnamon whiskey. I had never tasted this before. I've had this little bottle I got as a Christmas present somewhere from somebody, and it's been sitting in my cabinet, and I just cracked the cap on it and took just a little taste of it, and that's pretty good stuff. So I thought that might be interesting in one of these jars. This recipe it says it makes 7 8-ounce jars. Well, I'd rather do a little bit larger, so I'm going to do some pints. I figure if it does 7 8-ounce jars, the half pints, then it'll probably do 3 or 4 of the pints. So you can see I've got several washed up. I always wash up and prepare more jars than the recipe tells me to, just in case, because sometimes you run over. Better to have too many ready to go than not enough. I've been in that situation too. I'm sure many other canners have as well. And I also always clean up at least one smaller jar for that one that's just not enough to go in a pint, but this would be plenty. So while I'm at it, I wanted to show you this little cherry pitter. Now, this was a little over 2 pounds of cherries right here. I blew through pitting those things in probably 10 minutes with this little gadget I bought this week at Bed Bath & Beyond. It was worth the $15. My fingers are not stained. The last time I did cherry pie filling, I looked like a car mechanic for 2 weeks. It looked like I had old grease under my nails, and on my hands I was stained so bad because I did not have a pitter, and I had to do them all by hand. And so this resolved that, and I love this little thing. It was worth the $15 to pay for it. So I'll try to remember to put a link in there for it, and that needs to go back in the dishwasher because I just kind of rinsed it off so I could present it. Right now I'm waiting on my water to boil outside on the camp stove so I can sanitize the jars. I've washed them, but I'm going to sanitize them because this is a water bath. And I will also sanitize my lids and rings and all my tools that I have out over here. And this is what I'm going to put in the bottom of. I've got another pot like this on out there with water boiling. My stove has trouble boiling that much water. It just takes forever. But this way I can put it in the bottom of the pan and keep the jars from being against metal, glass on metal, and risk breaking them. So I just pulled this out of my little pressure canner because it fits in that pot just fine. So anyway, we'll be back when we get started, and I'm going to try to do a better job of taking this step by step. Alright, I've got my cherries drained, and I saved the water that I had them soaking in because the recipe calls for 2 cups of water. Well, I'd rather use the water with the juice in it to make it more flavorful, so I'm going to use that as part of my 2 cups. It might be just 2 cups, maybe not quite enough. But I've also got a cup of sugar that the recipe calls for in the pot over here on the stove. And I apologize again for the shaky camera work. I am doing this by hand. I don't have a camera stand. So anyway, I'm going to measure this up and see what it comes out to. And as far as the cherries goes, this was, like I said, a little over 2 pounds. I think it was like 2.1 pounds. And that's going to come out to, when I measured it before I pitted them, it was just about 5 cups of cherries with pits. And this recipe says you can use the cherries with the pits in it, 5 cups. But if you prefer to pit the cherries before preserving them, it says you need 7.5 cups of unpitted cherries. Well, I think that you know, that may be a little short, but yeah, I'm going to make do with it. So anyway, we'll be back. Okay. We are just a tad bit over 2 cups, not quite a half, so about 2 1/4 cups. I'm going to dump all that in there because I'm not going to waste that juice. Alright, I'm going to turn on the light here so you can see a little better. I've got the water, juice, water, and sugar in here, and it's all dissolved, and I'm waiting for that to come up to a boil. And then I'm going to add the cherries in there, and I'm going to bring that back up to a boil. Personally, I'm not sure this looks like enough liquid, but maybe once the cherries have cooked down a little bit, it will be. We shall see. But I'm going to have a pot behind it with some boiling water in there. Like I said, we'll see. This is the first time I've made this, so this is trial and error. See how it goes. Alright, our pot has gotten up to a boil. I just stirred it, so it's not boiling quite so much, but I'm going to dump the cherries in now. And I'm going to bring it back up to a boil. And let it simmer for about 5 minutes according to the recipe. Be back then. Okay, we've had the cherries boiling on the burner now for 5 minutes. So I've taken them off the heat, and I'm going to use a slotted spoon here to start filling my jars. So, and they go. I'm using one of my blue jars, Ball Anniversary Edition jars first, because whenever I have one of these empties, I like to fill it up. And so we're looking pretty good. Nice and hot. Got everything sterilized. We're going to leave a 1/2 inch headspace. Getting pretty close there. Sorry, drifting over with the camera while I'm looking away at what I'm trying to spoon out of here. Okay, now I'm going to set my camera down right there for a minute. I know you're getting the bottom of the jar, but I'm going to start with the amaretto first. And my recipe calls for 1½ teaspoons of amaretto. Well, I'm using pints instead of half pints, so I'm going to go ahead and put 2 teaspoons in here. Okay. And now I've added that, and ooh, that smells good. So now I've got to ladle some of this hot liquid in here. I'm sorry, drifting again. This really isn't easy to do one-handed. Ladling and drifting again, sorry. I'm trying to watch what I'm pouring and hold the camera steady as well. Not an easy task. A little more liquid. Let's see how. And I got a little more room, so grab another couple of cherries, add in here. See if that puts us up to where we need to be. Jar is really, really hot. I'm gonna use my, sorry, I'm drifting again. Use my little poker. Let's see where we're at. That's about 1 inch of headspace, so I've got a little more room in here. Cherry ought to do it. Let's see. Where's our 1/2 inch? 1/2 inch. I'm going to say that's close enough for clockwork for me. So now I'm going to work the air bubbles out. And again, I apologize profusely for drifting camera. Turn the jar. So it's still a little foamy. But I'm not going to worry about that. Alright, I've got a little vinegar water here. Going to wipe my rim. And going to get me a lid and put on here. And I'm going to put my, I can't do the ring and hold the camera at the same time, so I'm going to put a ring on here, finger tight, and get these in the canner. I'm going to finish these up. We'll see how many I get, and then I'll take you out to the canner, which I have outside on my camp stove. Okay, I'm outside, got these in the canner. I only got 2 pints out of that recipe. There's a third jar in there which is strictly the juice. I was worried about not having enough liquid. Had plenty of liquid, so I just figured instead of throwing that out, I added a couple of teaspoons of amaretto to it and figured I'd can it up. So once this comes back up to a boil, I'm going to start the timer and time them for 15 minutes. I'm going to go by what it says in the ball canning book for canning, just plain old canning cherries despite the alcohol being in there. Anyway, and I wanted to back up a little bit and show you my camp stove. I got this last year at Tractor Supply. As I said, my poor stovetop in there struggles to boil that much water. I'd be waiting forever for it to come to a boil. This thing, not a problem. And I managed to catch it on sale. They're normally about $80, I think. I could use my pressure canner out here. I don't have a problem using my pressure canner inside on the stovetop. That's not a big deal at all. But I can see one side has come loose on that too. I need to fix that, but it's going to be too hot now. But anyway, this was a great buy. If you can catch one and keep from heating your house up too bad by water bath canning outside or pressure canning if you're brave enough. The BTUs on this are within range to use with a pressure canner. Unlike a turkey fryer. I was using a turkey fryer to water bath, but when I would get done with it, I had to clean black soot off the bottom of my canner before I could put it up, and I just got tired of fooling with this. This has not done this. This is probably the 3rd or 4th thing I have water bath canned on it. It's doing wonderful. So, thankfully we got a little shade right now. It was out here in the sun. And it was almost up to 100 degrees. You can see my thermometer back there. It's down to about 90 now. So got a little reprieve. I'm hoping we'll get a little rain, but it needs to hold off until I'm done with the cherries. So anyway, we'll be back when these are done and ready to come out of the canner. Okay, here's our finished products. After letting them sit in the water bath canner, when it finished processing, I lifted the rack up and I let it sit out there for another 10 minutes to kind of acclimate to the temperature before I brought them inside in the air conditioning. So this one jar was a blue jar, so it looks a little bit darker. This one right here looks a little bit darker than the other one, but these are, I don't know if you can really tell, these are really pretty in the jars, and that's the juice that I saved. I just figured why let it go to waste. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you give this a try. If you do, I recommend using probably double the recipe, unless you're, like I said, originally it was for half pints, so I probably would have gotten about 4 half pints out of this, and if that's enough for you, then hey. I'm probably going to use these in some cobblers, and I'm hoping they'll turn out really good. So thank you for watching. God bless and happy canning.